Over the last several months, we've seen Sandbox altering nerfs to popular exotics like Heart of Inmost Light and Starfire Protocol, massive buffs to exotics like Foe Tracer and Vesper of Radius, and the introduction of game-changing exotics like the Cenotaph Mask that have completely altered the PvE meta. So with the help of you and my fellow creators, I compiled a list of the top 5 exotic armor pieces for each class as we head towards the final shape. I'm Above, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Starting with our Warlocks, this is arguably the hardest class to narrow down because there are so many strong playstyles that exist around certain exotics. I'm talking Rain of Fire, Necrotic Grips, Swarmers, Verity's Brow, and Vesper of Radius, just to name a few. They're all insane in their own right, but just miss out on our top 5. First up, we have the Cenotaph Mask, and this exotic states that damaging a vehicle, boss, or champion with trace rifles will mark the target, and when an ally defeats that marked target, special ammo is generated for you, while heavy ammo is generated for your allies. Seems pretty strong, right? Well, wait till you pair multiples of this exotic together, because it takes champions and turns them from a consistent heavy source into heavy ammo pinatas. A full fire team of Cenotaph Warlocks can essentially use their rockets as primaries because for every champion that you kill, you get multiple bricks of heavy in return, which has enabled some of the fastest Grandmaster Nightfall clears in the history of Destiny. This helmet is a game changer for team-based activities, and I highly recommend farming one out if you haven't already. Next up, we have the Sunbracers, and this exotic states that your solar grenades have increased duration, and solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade regen for 7 seconds. These enhanced solar grenades are incredibly strong on their own, but when you pair this with Touch of Flame, they gain a staggering linger duration of 10.5 seconds, making this the best ad clear build in the game hands down. And when you combine this with Ashes to Assets, your super regen goes through the roof, exceeding even the likes of Phoenix Protocol, an exotic that exists solely to regen your super. This means we get the best ad clear and the best super for the price of one, but unlike Cenotaph, however, I wouldn't recommend running more than one of these in a fire team, as you'll be competing for kills to proc the exotic perk. But for the one person that is running it, this exotic is an absolute game changer. The next exotic on our list has been a steady workhorse for our Warlocks over the years and is the first exotic that comes to mind when I think of Voidwalkers. Though it's been nerfed once before, the Controverse holds remain as one of the best Warlock exotics in Destiny. This exotic states that you gain damage resist while charging your Void Grenades, and charged Void Grenades return grenade energy on hit. Vortex Grenades are one of the best ad control abilities in the game because they pull enemies into its radius, debuff them, and do a ton of damage in the process. They also linger for an extremely long time, which allows Controverse to refund a significant portion of this ability on continuous hits. Though Void has been power crept slightly by the likes of the Solar and Arc 3.0 subclasses, it's hard to argue that Controverse completely transforms Voidwalker. More grenades, more Devour uptime, and more debuffs for your fire team, all coming from a single exotic. The next exotic on our list is one of my personal favorites and will probably catch some of you by surprise. The Fallen Sunstar is an exotic helmet that allows your ionic traces to travel faster and grant you additional ability energy when you pick them up. Nearby allies also gain ability energy each time you collect an ionic trace, which means this exotic is not only fantastic for solo play, it also benefits you in team settings. In my personal opinion, the Fallen Sunstar is superior to Vesper of Radius for a couple of reasons. With this exotic, you can constantly cycle your abilities, similar to Heart of Inmost Light before the nerf. Throw a grenade, drop a rift, and the ionic traces you produce are enough to let you do it all over again. I find Jolt to be the strongest part of Arc's kit, and nothing lets you use it more than the Fallen Sunstar. The second is that there aren't any qualifiers to get this to work. It's a neutral game exotic that just enhances what you're already doing without having to switch up your playstyle, and it does so in an incredibly powerful way. I'll leave a link to this build down in the description below, and I highly recommend giving this exotic a try. And last but not least, we have the Lunafaction boots. This exotic has been around since the game's inception, and though it's not as powerful as its original auto-loading version, which was completely busted by the way, it's still a must-pick for endgame content. This exotic states that your rifts increase weapon reload speeds, and your empowering rifts make weapons effective at longer ranges. This means that anytime you're in a well of radiance, which we are in just about every single DPS scenario, Lunas will provide both increased range and maximum reload speed. There is a drastic difference between a normal well and a Lunafaction well, and the benefits you gain will not only improve your DPS with meta-heavy weapons like rockets, it also helps shotguns and fusions maximize their damage on distant targets. This exotic has been one of the best in the game for a very long time now, and will be relevant on future raid bosses for years to come. Now it's time for our hunters, and this class was also incredibly difficult to narrow down. In fact, I'm leaving out exotics like Omnioculus, Young Ahamkara's Spine, Liar's Handshake, Graviton Forfeit, Orpheus Rig, and Lucky Pants, just to name a few. These are all incredible exotics, but just aren't quite on the level of the top 5 in my personal opinion. So, let's dive into them. First up, we have the Star Eater Scales, and this exotic states that you gain additional super energy from Orbs of Power, and while your super energy is full, you gain an overcharge that provides a 70% damage bonus to your super at maximum stacks. This exotic is great because of how simple yet extremely powerful it is. Collect Orbs of Power, cast your super, and reap the benefits. Hunters have some of the most versatile damage supers in the game, such as Mobius Quiver, Blade Barrage, and Gathering Storm, and this exotic makes all of them significantly better. Next up, we have the Assassin's Cowl. This exotic states that melee final blows grant invisibility and restore a portion of health and shields on kill. This helmet is often paired with Arc Hunter because Combination Blow and Gambler's Dodge can easily chain together to secure infinite charge melee kills that keep you invisible at nearly all times. This means you not only have top tier survivability, you also become an ad clearing machine that can take down high value targets like it's nothing. Assassin's Cowl has enabled some of the craziest challenges in Destiny for our hunter mains out there, including the likes of solo Nezarec and world record solo Grandmaster speedruns. If you haven't given this exotic a try just yet, I highly suggest doing so because it's insanely fun and extremely powerful in endgame content. The third exotic on our list is Gerfalcon's Halberg, and it makes our list over the other invisibility-based exotics because of how useful it can be in both solo and team play. This exotic states that your void weapons gain volatile rounds after emerging from invisibility, and we gain 40% bonus damage to all weapons after finishing a target while invisible. With the right build, you can have these bonuses proccing constantly. You go invis, gain volatile rounds, defeat a volatile target, then go invisible again, leading to a potent and satisfying gameplay loop that destroys endgame PvE. The fact that you have permanent invisibility, insane ad clear, and intrinsic barrier capabilities thanks to volatile rounds is more than enough to justify this exotic's placement for me. Next up, we have the Aeon Swift, an exotic that provides heavy ammo to your allies when performing finishers on champions or elite rank enemies. And though a version of this exotic exists on all 3 classes, I'd be doing this list a disservice if I didn't include it here. I firmly believe that hunters are best equipped to utilize Aeons as they have some of the strongest neutral game subclasses in Destiny. This means our exotic slot is freed up to utilize Aeons for our fire team, and manipulating the heavy ammo economy is one of the most impactful things you can do in endgame content. Aeons are one of just 2 exotics in the game that can predictably spawn heavy ammo, making it an obvious choice for this list. The 5th and final spot was incredibly difficult to narrow down, and I almost gave it to the Lucky Pants, but it's actually been passed up by a newly reworked exotic in the Foe Tracer. This exotic now states that damaging a powerful combatant with an ability grants you a temporary weapon bonus matching your subclass type. But unlike Surge mods that cap out at 22%, Foe Tracer gives you a 25% damage bonus without having to equip any Surge mods at all. This means you can use your Surges in other places to boost other weapons in your loadout, whether it's in DPS rotations or just running around killing things in open world content. And much like Star Eaters, this works with any subclass, meaning you can run it with whatever you're comfortable with. I just made a build video where I go more in depth, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. And last but not least, we have our Titans. Though I found that there's less variety here, they do have some of the most potent exotics in the game, from boss killers to unkillable in your in-your-face playstyles that allow Titans to do things that no other class can. First up, we have an exotic that was widely considered the best exotic armor piece in the game just a few seasons ago. One that had its ability uptime nerfed by an astounding 50%, yet remains as one of the best exotics in Destiny. Heart of Inmost Light states that using an ability will empower your other two abilities. Empowered abilities have faster regen, melees and grenades do more damage, and your barricades are stronger. This not only allows your grenades to hit hard, it also allows you to cycle through your abilities like few other subclasses can. It's extremely popular on both Void and Arc Titan, but is versatile enough to work on any subclass. It's common for Titan mains to use this for annihilating rooms of enemies, then swap to our next exotic for DPS. Curus of the Falling Star takes Thunder Crash from a decent burst damage super and turns it into a tactical nuke. This exotic increases the base Thunder Crash damage by 100%, which is extremely powerful when you consider just how quickly you can cast this super and how easy this exotic is to use. It's so strong, in fact, that you can one-floor Aatrax with just 2 of them. Not to mention that you gain an overshield for 7 seconds once the super deactivates, which is great for survivability. The best part is that this has no activation requirement like the Star Eater scales do, which means you can simply swap to this right before DPS and reap the full benefits. This exotic is extremely easy to use, does a ton of damage, and is an obvious pick for all of my Titan mains out there. Next up, we have the Abiant Leap. This exotic enhances the Dranger's Lash strand aspect with 2 additional projectiles, allowing for more aggressive tracking and more effective range to suspend enemy targets. It also grants you Woven Mail every time you suspend a combatant, which is a 60% damage resist that activates every time you use your class ability. This exotic turns Strand Titan into an unkillable tank capable of suspending entire rooms of enemies with the press of a single button. And though Suspend isn't as potent as it used to be after the nerfs, it's still incredibly strong and can dominate Grandmaster Nightfalls with ease. Next up, we have the Syntheseps, which in my opinion is not only the strongest Titan exotic, it might just be the best exotic we have in the game, period. The Syntheseps single-handedly enables some of the craziest unkillable PvE builds the sandbox has ever seen, including the likes of Bonkhammer and Banner of War. Syntheseps increase your melee and super damage when surrounded by enemy combatants, and with how ad-dense most activities are nowadays, you'll have biotic enhancements procced constantly. The added melee damage makes it extremely easy to kill targets with your hammer or secure a melee kill to proc Banner of War even in contest level content. But this exotic isn't just good for survivability, it's also insane for boss damage when you pair Syntheseps with a 1-2 punch shotgun. While surrounded, you will absolutely devastate bosses and is one of the only reasons that solo Eryute is possible, a crazy challenge that was just accomplished this season. And last but not least, we have the Pyrogale Gauntlets, which is a brand new exotic this season that's already made a significant impact on the sandbox. This exotic takes the normal roaming super of Burning Maul and turns it into a single devastating heavy slam. Think of this as the solar version of Curus of the Falling Star. The instant cast means you have more time during damage phases to DPS with your weapons, which now makes Solar Titans viable in most boss scenarios. And for those of you who utilize loadout swaps, you can use Syntheseps for ad clear and survivability, then swap to the Pyrogale Gauntlets during damage phases and get the best of both worlds. And at the very least, these gauntlets open up damage options for Titans that have otherwise been limited in the past and are a ton of fun to use. Well guys, that's gonna do it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if I happen to miss any of your favorite exotics and why you think they should take the place of an exotic in my top 5. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.